The other uncomfortable part of this story, I get emails all the time, and I'm glad to get them from fellow UVA suffering fans like me. Lots of alums, lots of folks who have just decided to they've invested way too much emotional energy into this, like I have. And the question that they have is why doesn't it seem like we even try to win? And not from the player's perspective, the coach's perspective, from 30,000 feet, from the administration's perspective. And the administration, I don't even mean the athletics administration. I'm talking about the president's office, the board of visitors. Why doesn't it seem like anybody there wants us to win these games? Let me tell you a story. I wrote a column about this today. Today being Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving week's always a interesting work week for us because it's always Virginia Tech week, and it's hard to take time off during this week because you got to get ready for the big game of the year. Um, Now, here's a reality of college football. There's even a UVA football program is because the University of Virginia, like every other college and university in America that plays football, has made a bargain. It ain't a good bargain. I called it in the column a Faustian bargain. That's where you have to give up something good to get something bad. Um, we, like all the other schools, let kids beat each other senseless um, for the purpose of getting other kids to apply for admission. That is what college sports is in general. That's what it is at its core. You don't make money playing college sports. Programs don't profit at playing college sports. I mean, football programs will bring in more money than they spend. Um, at schools like UVA, they do. They don't at the JMU level and the ODU level and all the way down. The JMU I've written about this fall. The football program loses $5 to $7 to $8 million a year. And the way they make that up is they get their students to pay exorbitant student fees. Um, at places like UVA, you break even. Some of the big programs in the SEC and the Big Ten and in Clemson and Florida State will actually have a little bit of money left over, a little bit of profit. I'll use the air quotes there at the end of the year, but it's not worth the money you put into it. I'll tell you that. The reason you do all this is it's a marketing thing. The reason you play big time college football is 12 times a year. And then if you get into an ACC championship game, if you get into a playoff, you get a few more opportunities. It's 3 hour infomercials about applying for admission and enrolling in that school or those two schools. And you play these games, you play football games. At the ACC level, most games get a million viewers. Some of the games, the higher profile games, if it's Florida State or Clemson involved, Notre Dame involved, you get 2 or 3 million viewers. If you get into a bowl game, a couple million viewers. If it's a playoff game, several million viewers. But your average run-of-the-mill Saturday in September or October, it's a million and a half people watching. But it's still, I mean, you put all this money out to get people to watch. You get people feeling good about the college campus at UVA, the grounds. You try to show them a good time, and then the kids want to be involved. The kids being the high school juniors and seniors, and when the sophomores and juniors are thinking about applying to school, the seniors are applying to school. You want them to apply to your school, and then obviously you translate those kids into people who pay tuition, and that's how the whole operation works. It's marketing. Football, particularly, but all the college sports are marketing. It's not about winning championships. It's not about making money. It's about marketing. If you make money and win championships, that's nice. It's on top of everything else there. So I told you that story. Now to tell you another one. This is specific to the University of Virginia and the oddball approach that we have to playing football. We do it with one hand tied behind our backs. Now, I am the first guy, and lately I've noticed I don't read a lot of other UVA media's stuff, but just glancing at the headlines in my Google News, I'm starting to sense that the other folks are starting to be as critical as I have been of things. I'm starting to see people starting to be critical of Tony Elliott and Carla Williams, the AD. Really, just in the last couple of weeks, I've been leading this drumbeat for a couple of years. I'm the one even though they will tell you, that Tony Elliott needs to do this or whatever, Carla Williams needs to do that. I'm the one telling you specifically, like, I'm willing to point out that Tony Elliott's class of 2024, his prep recruiting class, is ranked 88th in the country by 247 Sports. Um, 88th in the country is not good. There are 69 Power Fours plus Notre Dame. That means there are a lot of group of fives ahead of us, and there are a few group of fours below us. But man, and there's not. It's not even talking like the group of fives who are ahead of us. It's not it's not just the Boise States and that level of group of four, the group of fives. I'm talking about like South Alabama. I mean, like the schools that shouldn't be anywhere near being ahead of us in recruiting, and they are. Um, Now, I tell you that, and then I tell you that Tony Elliott hasn't done a good job at all, really, on the transfer portal. Now, what if I told you that the issue isn't entirely on Elliott? In fact, it's not a lot at all on Elliott and his staff. And that the big issue is they're not getting any help from folks in admissions. Some of you out there will be, oh yeah, that's exactly what I've been trying to say. I've been posting that on social media. I've been posting it on message boards. Let me give you some specifics to give you some ammunition here. I got word from a contact this week that the staff has been working the transfer portal pretty actively because FCS football has ended. Now the regular season has ended. They're in their playoffs, so all the guys when the FCS season ends, they're open to, especially the guys who can be grad seniors. They can enter the portal, and I've got the number as of when I wrote the story this morning on 3.com's online tracker has 181 guys in the portal as of right now. 181 guys looking for new places to go. Uh, so I tell you that to tell you that from what I was told earlier this week, the UVA staff had already made contact with around a dozen guys who had expressed interest in UVA. None got through admissions. 0 for 12, 0 for 12-ish. Well, let's say was the word on their status. 0 for 12-ish. Now, these would be guys who'd be grad seniors. So these are the guys who are supposed to be the guys who can get in. You put this up against what some of our peer institutions are doing now. Northwestern, for example, another academically focused power conference school, Power Four school. According to one report, they quote streamlined the admissions process to enable prospective transfers to get admitted by the start of the winter quarter, which is January 6th. Duke's already done this. The reason Duke's been competitive the last 3 years is because Duke's playing football. They want to play football. And I'm sure that Tony Elliott wishes he had known that when he made his decision 3 years ago. He had the choice between Duke and Virginia, and he chose Virginia because he thought Virginia was the big boy football school of the two. Duke is the one that's allowing their coaches to get guys in, and Tony Elliott is playing hard, is having to play hardball with his admissions folks, and he's losing these battles. So for 12 this fall already. Um, because the approach at UVA is even though the Dukes and Northwesterns are saying we'll go ahead and play big boy football, we're playing high and mighty with our academic standards and making our coaches go about building a roster with one hand tied behind our backs. It's to a point where will we even be able to field a team this year? And it's almost a legitimate question. We'll field a team. Tony Elliott will get 85 guys, whatever we end up getting on a roster. But we got 43 guys who are seniors and grad seniors on this team this year. The big number is because usually you got between 20 and 25. I mean, most of your signing classes, you get, 22 to 27, 28 guys sign as prep seniors. They start matriculating, and because of transfers, etc., in and out, you usually end up with around 20 to 25 guys as seniors on your roster. One senior day. We had senior day this past weekend. Reason we have so many more is because okay, everybody got the COVID transfer year, redshirt year, back from the 2020 season, and then we got the extra redshirt year in 2022 because of the November 13th mass shooting that canceled the last two games of the season, and then the NCAA, which is rare in doing nice things, decided that it was kind of wrong for the kids to have to give up their whole, that whole year of eligibility with the way that season ended for lots of reasons. So we had an extra class basically of seniors on this year's roster. We should be better than 5-5 with all those old guys. But that said, so we're up, there will be a few guys among those 43 who have eligibility left for some reason that will decide, they might have medical red shirts, they may have had other issues that will decide will come back. So it may not be 43 of 43 who are matriculating out. Um, but if it's, it's not going to be a lot of those 43, four or five maybe who will end up coming back. And then you always have 12 to 15 guys, always in the portal era, which is 3 years old, that will be looking to transfer out for various reasons, including academic reasons. I'm hearing about one in particular that's not going to be good for us to talk about when we have to talk about that here in a few weeks. Um, that so you're looking 50 to 60 guys maybe that Tony Ellis going to have to replace. Usually in a season, you're going to have, and so you always have, so you replenish with your prep class. We've only got 14 commits in the prep class. So, maybe we'll add an uncommitted kid or two. We'll flip a kid or two. So, maybe get 18 to 20. You're still leaving 30 to 40 from the portal. Oh my God. And so that, if you think that's easy, remember they got to get in. At least you want them. I mean, you want them practicing in the spring. To learn the system, to learn their teammates. You want them also to have an academic year at Virginia, academic semester at Virginia. Then they get into summer school, get ahead of the curve there as far as credits. So you want to have as many of these guys in as possible for the spring semester, which starts in mid-January. They got to get in school now. So these admissions folks who already are 0 for 12ing us are going to have, I mean, to get between 50 and so between 50 and 60, they've been working on the high school kids. Hopefully that work is wrapped up as much as possible. We still got to get the other 30 to 40 from the portal in, and they got to review these applications and do all the work I mean, for the undergrad kids, making sure classes transfer over to the UVA degree. You got to make if it's a grad kid, you got to make you got to all the I's got to be dotted and T's crossed on their transcripts and getting them over. I mean, this is a lot of work on a small staff that is going to have to work overtime and beyond between now and final exams to get this stuff all figured out. Um, a lot of questions about this, as it turns out, at Elliott's weekly presser, and he talked about it a lot. He said the folks in the scouting department are nonstop. I mean, so on the football side, this isn't just we got to get all the kids in. You got to figure out, who fits the program. You got to then reach out and see who's interested. So the folks in the scouting department, this I'm quoting now, are nonstop because the FCS season's over. So a lot of grand transfers and those individuals are getting the portal. That's the first thing Elliot said. We're already preparing to be evaluating a lot of film on the guys currently in. Now, keep in mind, they've been having to do this while also getting ready for the last couple of games of the season. Now, obviously, we're having conversations with the guys that have entered the portal and are approved to talk to. They got to be in the portal before you can talk to them. So to say that, I mean, if my person that told me this was right, and we're already 0 for 12, there's 181 guys in the portal. We've been our coaching staff, give them credit. They've been pretty active to go over 12 out of 181 guys. Um, so the difference that makes it tougher this year, now this is some inside baseball, but this is important to know. The recruiting period is considered a dead period all the way up until the portal opens, which formally for the FBS guys and for the FCS guys who are undergrads would be December 9th. So not this coming Monday, but the following Monday. And then it's still a quiet period. So it's a dead period. You can't talk to anybody who's not in the portal. And then it's a quiet period, which means you can't meet them in person. So let's just assume, let's be positive here. And UVA shocks the world that cares and wins the Tech game on Saturday night, gets a bowl bid on Sunday. There'll be, obviously there'll be a little bit of quiet time from the football this season perspective because the kids didn't have to go to final exams. Final exams at UVA start, I believe it's December 7th. So it's not this Saturday, but next Saturday. They're through December 17th, I think it is. And then, so if your game is if we win the game, if we get a bowl game, it's going to be either the early period of the week before Christmas or the early period of the week after Christmas. Um, probably the right the week after Christmas, like this the day after or 2 days or 3 days after Christmas. So you reassemble, if guys are conditioning while they're taking exams, and then you get the football part back together for a little bit of um, reacclimation, and then you do game plan and installation week, just like you would do a normal week. Um, During that period of time, Elliot and the staff are going to be out there. They can't be driving. They can't be driving and flying. They'll just be working their phones nonstop. They'll be um, Woj, Woj or Schefter, right? Working the phones and the texting and not ever sleeping. Um, but they'll be scrambling to get guys there, and you can't. Again, you have to convince them to even think about you without being able to talk to them face to face. This is there's a 14-day period, and everybody's doing this, and everybody 130 plus FBS schools are going to be looking for the top guys. So goodness gracious, I mean, so when you're recruiting the preps, you're starting to make contacts with like high school freshmen and sophomores, right? You're working it for 3 years. You're doing all this is speed dating on steroids. You got 2 weeks to, and we got to get like everybody else has got to get 15 or 20 or maybe 25 guys. We got to get 30 or 40 guys. This is crazy. And then you got to get them in school. So, um, how can UVA be competitive? I wrote about this 2 weeks ago after the Pitt win. Tony Elliott was invited on the set of the ACC huddle, the post game huddle after the win. He's there. Hey, congratulations, coach, you won the game. And Mark Richt is one of that panel, and Mark Richt interviewed for the UVA job back in 2015. Mark Richt, thus, because he interviewed for the job, he would have done things like ask questions. What is your approach to recruiting? He took himself out of running when he found out just how hard it would be to recruit. He took the job at Miami and won some games there before quitting a couple of years later. Uh, but he asked a question with knowledge of how UVA does things, at least from his perspective from 2015. And the answer was not good at that time. I mean, from our perspective of wanting to be competitive, Elliott talked about how it's really hard to recruit underclassmen because of they have to have 60 credit hours at UVA to get a UVA degree. So you can't really recruit juniors because you'd be asking them to get 60 hours to get a degree. They probably already have between, somewhere around 90 hours at their current school, and then they have to get 60 more to graduate from UVA. They got to go. They basically are throwing away a year of their college wherever they were to come to UVA, and then they gotta. It's just tough. Um, so you're limited to really going for freshmen, guys who finished their freshman year or graduate student, guys who are going to be graduate students, guys who will be graduating from their current school, and then they're going to they already have graduated from their current school and have the ability to come in. So he expounded on that this week. It's just, yeah, you can't really go for juniors. When you're looking for the undergrad guys, even the guys that you can look for, you got to make sure that their credits transfer from the school they're at, or you're asking them to get more than 60 hours in 2 years. That's going to be tough too. So we're kind of stuck looking at grad guys, and it's hard to get those guys in the spring because kind of like Chris Tyree as an example, got a commitment from Chris Tyree, but he couldn't come until after he graduated from Notre Dame in May, so he didn't get to practice with Virginia in spring, and then he had to. It was a crash course, and it's just not worked out. So I tell you all that now to tell. So I've told you a couple different stories now to tell you what I really was trying to get to. If what I've been told is true, Elliot and the staff have gone over 12 already with admissions just in the last couple weeks. Um, and I gotta say, he and his staff are 3 years in now. They know what will pass muster with admissions. So they're not presenting desperate cases to admissions to say, can you get this guy in? They're presenting cases to the admissions folks with a working knowledge of what they think will get in, and they're still over. Um, if that's the case, what are we even doing here? What are we doing? Why are we still playing football at UVA? If we're not trying. And I got to tell you that the answer isn't what you want to hear. UVA football subsidizes the non-revenue sports. And you're looking you're when you hear me say that, you're thinking, how is that possible? You're Chris, you're the one who writes every week about the half empty or more than half empty stadiums. How are they making money? Well, it's not from the ticket sales, as I've been pointing out. UVA trails mightily the rest of the ACC in ticket sales for football. But we all get TV money in pretty much equal increments. And this is the trick. UVA football in 2022, that's the last year for which we have full numbers. So the fiscal year 2022, uh, the football program ran a $20 million operating surplus. I don't want to use the word profit because, college athletics are nonprofits, so technically, but a $20 million operating surplus. And that was with football getting $22.8 million from the ACC for its TV rights. So UVA football's in the red too, if not for the TV money. Now, on the other side of that, the non-revenue sports at UVA run roughly, go figure how this is the case, run roughly a $20 million operating deficit. That's everything from women's basketball to baseball to squash. Um, in terms of our national championship women's swimming team, we recently national champion doubles, women's doubles, individual champions, right? These programs all run staggering deficits. It's paid for by football. So if that's starting to make sense to you, UVA football is the Chicago Cubs or Boston Red Sox of the ACC. The analogy I'm going for there is if you're a long-suffering Cubs or Red Sox fan. Now you've gotten World Series relatively recently, right? The Cubs finally won one in 2016, the Sox in 2004, a couple more after that. But I know Sox fans who are frustrated with their front office the last couple of years because it looks like they're not spending the money to keep competitive with the Yankees and the Dodgers. I mean, the Yankees in the AL East, Dodgers overall, and the Cubs have also since the World Series year have fallen off too. The problem being the fans of those franchises, they will buy tickets anyway, so they make money no matter what. They'll watch on TV, so the TV money's consistent. The stadiums are filled up no matter what. So those teams make money whether or not the team is successful. Now, UVA football doesn't sell tickets, whether with losing football games, but they make the TV money no matter what. And if they're going to profit, they're going to run a $20 million operating surplus with the way things are now. What's the motivation to try harder? What's the motivation to what would the motivation be to uh work with your football? I'm not going to say lower admission standards. Work with your football program to get more athletes into school to win more football games because you're already making money as it is. Okay, so we're making around $8 million a year in ticket sales. I keep using as the measuring stick Virginia Tech, which almost doubles us in ticket sales. They've had a similar record the last 5 seasons, and in this season have the exact same record, and they double us in ticket sales. So if they're doubling us in ticket sales, that's $8 million more a year. Okay, great, $8 million more a year, and we had to lower our academic standards to get there. These hoity-toities will say, "I'm a hoity-toity too, in a sense. I'm a UVA alum." But um, this issue is a cultural one, and it dates back long before most of the people, if not all of us, right now, me talking, you watching, listening, have been alive. Colgate Darden, the UVA president back in the 1950s, the football team was 8-1, ranked number 9 in the country, got an Orange Bowl invitation. He turned it down. And the reason was, quote, he wanted to steer clear of big time, highly subsidized football. This is 1951, I think it was. Wanted to steer clear of big time, highly subsidized football. I mean, when you look at that, and this is still the attitude that they've got in those offices. The George Welsh years must have driven them all crazy because he was able to figure out how to win with athletes, student athletes who can get into school, the Terry Kirby's and Chris Slades, and you go down the list, smart guys who can get into school and win football games and play and had great NFL careers. George Welsh, he had to, I mean, gosh, here we are playing big time football, playing in big bowl games, number one in the country for 3 weeks. That embarrasses us. All they want, all those folks want, is the TV money from football to pay for swimmers and rowers and track and field athletes and tennis players who go into the Olympics and win medals. And then they mention, I mean, we had it a lot this summer. I will tell you, I was proud watching the Paris Olympics on TV and hearing all these UVA names out there. The swimming was fun. Man, that was the UVA meat, right? Um, but that's what the Blue Bloods want, sitting in the big offices there. They don't want to be too good at football. Football's a lowbrow sport. Might as well be pro wrestling. That's jocular. That's what John Castine said. There's a John Castine story that relates here. John Castine is the one who said that the UVA football rivalry with Virginia Tech was jocular. Um, when Patrick Height and I were working on the book that we did, the Mad About You book on the history of University Hall. Dan Bonner told us a story about because Dan Bonner, it was hard to remember this. He was a UVA women's basketball coach back in the 70s. He was the first coach for like 2 years. He quit when he sat down and talked with John Castine. John Castine wasn't even a president then. He was like, he was a higher up, like a dean of students or something like that. And he wanted, so at the time when Dan was first couple years coaching, ODU women's basketball was the measuring stick, and they had started giving out scholarships to lure players in, and they were getting some good players, Nancy Lieberman, etc. And Dan's like, "Hey, come on, can't we get some scholarships?" And Castine said, "No, women's basketball don't want scholarships for that. I would prefer to give out the scholarships for the women athletes. I want a tennis player in the finals of Wimbledon, and I want them talking on the broadcast about how she went to UVA." Now, I mean, we've got Amanda Navarro and Danielle Collins. They represented us in the Olympics, have been doing great the last few years. One of them is retiring, and I wouldn't don't make me swear to who it is retiring this year or is already retired after this season because we're at the end of the year. The ATP is already finished up. And I wrote a story about it. I just don't remember. I didn't prepare that part of this my thinking for this podcast. But the point being, we've had some great women's tennis players in the past who've done well at the pro ranks, in the pro ranks, representing us in the Olympics again. But this is the attitude that it permeates the upper echelons of UVA administration. They don't want to win in football. That's the bottom line. They don't want to win football. They just want, but they have to play football. We can't not play football. We can't go to D3, can't go to the Ivy League. Got to stay in the ACC. We got to keep throwing those teams out there to get their heads kicked in so that we can have a top 10 team in men's and women's squash. Don't that beat all? All right, you're ready for Virginia Tech. I've already got you in a drinking mood. So if you got any questions for me, anything else, please feel free to drop me a line at chris@augustafreepress.com.